Startup founders spend over $200,000 a year hiring an chief executive officer, only to realize 6 months in, they still stuck. It's not a talent problem. It's a sequencing problem. Today, I'm joined by Kelly O'Neill, an expert in marketing to millionaire, to unpack how fractional executives fix the gaps before you burn cash or wait for a unicorn hire that never lands. If you have outgrown mentors and need real momentum, this episode is for you.
Welcome to Provider's Edge, the podcast that helps healthcare entrepreneurs and innovators break down barriers and control their business, life, and future with valuable action steps. With me, your host, Sabrina Runbeck, a recovered clinician and a business deal catalyst. Let's rewrite the rules and create a positive social impact while increasing your profitability. Before we dive into today's expert conversation, I want to pause for a minute and talk directly to the innovators in the room, especially if you're preparing for a raise or aim to land a pivotal partnership this year. Your pitch isn't just a story, it's a strategy. And if you're still guessing what investors or decision makers want to hear, you're already behind. That's exactly why we built Pitch to Yes. We don't just critique your pitch, we co-create it with you. You will walk away with a persuasion scorecard and a written pitch that turns attention into action. Apply at pitchtoyes.com. Now let's dive into today's conversation.
To find fractional executive has been something that every single startup founder and growth phase of companies are all looking for. Then challenge has always been, how do we find them? And what's the difference between what I call a title board member versus actually function board member here to support you every step of the way? Today, we have the amazing Kelly O'Neill here with us, one of my dearest mentors, supporting how I, all these past years, have grown my business to stand up here with you guys. And we can't wait to hear from Kelly, and especially all the new movements she has been helping healthcare startup and just people in tech to grow their amazing empire. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
I know you always are amazing at breaking down ideas into something so tangible, so sensible, and people just like, wow, okay, I get it. And it's all about getting people to lean in. So we are talking today about what is a C-suite, right? Executive teams, and perhaps even tap into when do you feel like people should start looking for them, and how do they find those people? And how do we really best leverage them?
Sure. So, one of the challenges that especially a lot of startups have, or, emerging entrepreneurial businesses as they're growing, is at a certain point, your needs grow. You've always heard the saying, what got you here won't get you there. And when people start, and maybe they start with mentors, or they start in coaching programs, or they have advisors, and a lot of times, especially like in the coaching world, these people don't necessarily have like a huge background in running organizations. They may have run their organization, and then they can show you how to blueprint their this is how I did it based on me hiring other mentors who taught me how to do the thing, and then we're passing it down. But at a certain point, that's not going to cut it for organizations when they're looking to really make massive leaps in their business. But the challenge always becomes, as we know, is the cash flow, right? To hire a C-suite executive, depending on what, where you are or what you have going on. I mean, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to put someone on full time. And even then, that's just one position. So one of the things that has been really a proliferation in industries nowadays are what we call fractional C-suites. So as an example, I'm a fractional chief strategy officer. I can also sit in the role of fractional chief marketing officer, but typically, even if I start in that role, I end up in the strategy role. And my background was in corporate America. I started in brand agencies when I was 19, a brand marketing and PR agency when I was 19 years old. I then was in a variety of agencies in the Silicon Valley, working in tech. And then as I continued to grow, I went in-house in corporate, doing PR and branding. And then from there, I ended up doing consulting in tech. And a lot of times, I was doing a lot of different things. I was looking at market positioning and messaging. And then I was looking at, how to the best go-to-market strategy and how to differentiate us in the marketplace. But then also that led into, I did a lot of government relations, as well as I did a lot of getting companies ready to go for funding, or even sitting in the rooms while they were going funding. And I was, I wrote the pitch decks, right? I was a part of the team that wrote the pitch decks to get the funding. Well, fast forward now, 25 years now in my own business, I've been running my own businesses, and I've been, working with a lot of different industries, still a lot of healthcare. Actually, I do work with a lot of healthcare companies, but I've also worked with other tech companies. I've worked with professional services firms of various sizes and medical device companies, and really going in and ultimately helping them understand what their goals are. Because even then, sometimes people they haven't really flushed it out, right? One of the things I say a lot, you've heard me say this a million times, you can't read the label of a bottle from the inside, right? So with that, you need someone to be able to come in and provide an outside viewpoint and help you get really clear about what it is that you want to do, and then help you devise the strategy to most effectively get there.
Exactly. Because most people, when they're too close to their own solution, they have a tunnel vision of what that looks like. When you are so in it, you cannot be a objective third party to really figuring out what are your blind spot. You can never see your own blind spot. And the culture, most startups, when they come to me, start looking into the next round of funding, whether it's through the VC connections I have, or is the getting into the place of how do they stand out, they're always saying, okay, Sabrina, yeah, we're so ready. We're about to bring on that CEO. So I will ask them, okay, so that's part of the money that you're going to use. Great. How much is that? How much ROI are you going to have that one person? And usually exactly is at least $150,000 a year to hire these people. They're not cheap. And then at the end of the day, that's just one person. When you have multiple fractional people who are all domain experts, they are able to then collectively work together, and we are able to count on their knowledge. It's not just despite someone who come in with 50 years of experience, it's still just one person instead of this fractional way of this new era, especially what you taught me, right? In those multiple dimensional way of seeing what the company critically need. So then we can speed up that much faster because we're never just seeing a tunnel vision anymore.
Let's pause here. If you're still thinking hiring that perfect full-time CMO or COO is your next move, ask yourself, are you just reacting to pressure, or do you have a real strategy? What Kelly unpacked is huge. Most early stage companies don't need more titles. They need sharp outside eyes to break tunnel vision. We talked about how fractional executives can cost at least $200K to hire one person, while hoping that this person can bring layers of expertise across multiple industry strategy. However, this is just the beginning. We rarely can see one person can be master of all. Now, as we go into the next section, we'll get into how to choose the right execs, avoid fake credentials, and stack your team for real traction.
Real quick, if you're a healthcare founder building in women's health, mental health, digital health, age tech, biotech, diagnostics, or longevity, we built Capital Engine for you. We don't just get you in the room, we make sure you're ready to own it. Our team vets the right investors and potential C-suite operators to help you validate products, run pilot trials, or scale your next revenue partner. Some founders get so much investor interest, they've asked us to slow it down. And whether it takes 2 months or 2 years, we stay with you until your raise is closed with expert advisors who've built and exited healthcare companies themselves. Apply now at Capital Engine VC and let's get to work. All right, let's get back to the second half of our show.
Right. And frankly, like getting an executive in that's like, you're not getting an executive for 150. That's not one that is going to get you where you need to go in this high competitive marketplace. But this also allows this position to grow with you. You know, when I start with companies, we might start at one rate and one level of service, and then it can grow. And my objective is to ultimately grow myself out of the organization and then replace myself with someone who, can be in there full time.
Yes, it's that setting up the structure, right? The foundation.
Yes.
Like what I always say, most of these startups, they're jumping too many steps already. And
Yes.
so it's like they're building their castle on top of the sand. So they feel like, oh, I put up this wall, this mirror, I'm having this conversation, this person talking to me, they say that it's interested. They're really mistaking movements that are not momentums, right? So they are just in this hyperdrive of, I'm doing so much. Oh, see what we're up to. But how are you actually getting them pushed forward? If you don't know how to do that, if you don't have someone who set up these foundation, then whoever else that you hire as a full-time, they have taken so long to even figure out what your company structure is and fix all the mistakes. So then you actually won't see the result as fast, despite you're hiring them and spend all this money up front.
Correct.
Yeah, which is tough in the sense of who are these people? How do you find these people? In your experience, what are some of the advices when, especially as a strategist officer? I feel like number one, people need to have a strategy officer, and number two, like where I coming in, mostly is like a fractional COO. At that point, is like, what are you guys doing? How come all the resources that you have, whether it's the people, whether it's tech, it's not really working in your favor, where people are not talking the same thing, right? And then they really needed to have a chief people officer. So for me, at least, those are my default of where people need to start. Would you say that's a good starting point? What else would you add to that?
It really depends on the organization and where they are in the process. And that's actually one of the things, as a chief strategy officer, that's actually one of the things I look at. So like as an example, depending on where you are in the organization, hiring a chief people officer before you hire a chief financial officer is likely not advisable. Does that make sense? Because you're going to want to be able to control the budget. But it depends, again, on where you are in the organizational growth and what the objectives of that specific organization is. You know, one of the things that I know, again, you've teased me about, my clients tease me, I always say, it depends, right? That therein lies the strategy, because when you're operating and you're creating and calling shots on strategy for a company, there's never a one size fits all. You're calling shots based on all of the pieces of the puzzle that you're putting together. And so I wouldn't say that there's one tried and true, if that
Exactly.
makes sense.
Yeah, it is a puzzle piece, right? You have to figure out the reason that I always say people come first is because if we don't really know, which happens a lot in startup world, is they start, let's say two friends get together, they become co-founders, they get going. But not both of them have the same talent, perspective, expectation. And also both of them are not necessarily always aligned into purpose and mission of the company. So if
Right.
they don't have the right people officer to help them to structure that what's the dynamic start from top down, who are the missing roles to fill this, then to your point, you do need to have some who are more financially acclimated to say, do I even have the right equity to share to a budget to hire a virtual assistant versus a tech expert, or you're connected to a university, which there are coders, so you can easily bring those people in a very low budget, right? So there's so many things in that play. But when I believe in people in that first forefront of a strategy is most people are not thinking about the right alignment or cohesiveness of that. They're already immediately jumping into let's get funding first, let's get going first.
Right.
And then sometimes it can be challenging as I have built business that you are too. Sometimes the fractional CFO comes in. I'm like, what do you do? Besides did my projection, and they're not exactly in the trenches of building a business. They're really about analyzing the number and seeing where the movement is. So sometimes it also is a challenge to say, oh, we're hiring a financial person to do all this work, but I would be so willing to pay someone in those time frame instead of bringing someone on a continual basis for someone who's more of the financial role.
Yes, exactly. And, and back to your other question, where do you find these people? So do an internet search, right? So you can find people. I mean, LinkedIn, like my LinkedIn says all about being a fractional chief strategy officer. What I would say is you do need to ask them about their background and their philosophy, because one of the things that I have seen in the marketplace now, which does cause a little concern for me, is that because this is gaining in popularity given the market, one of the things that I'm starting to see is people marketing programs that teach people how to pitch themselves as fractional executives. That's scary to me. Does that make sense? Because that's like, what gives you the ability to do the job, not just market yourself as that, if that makes sense. You've got to make sure that these people actually have the track record and the wisdom and the experience to be able to execute in the way that you need. And you need to make sure that they know how to do that in your industry. So depending on what it is that they're doing, do they actually understand your industry or your type of organization, or do they have experience in whatever your next set of goals are, because you need to get yourself to the next step. But like to what you said, a lot of times what's happening is these founders, they're bottom-upping everything, meaning that they're just executing. So they don't even have a strategy, which is why things feel all over the place. And they're like, oh, well, we need someone to hire finances. We're just going to hire someone to go do that. And it's like, is that really the next best thing? What's the bigger picture here? And then are we executing in alignment with moving in the most efficient way towards those results? Or are we just doing stuff because it seems like we need that, or we should be doing that? Or, there is an order to these things to make it most efficient and to get things done in the most effective way.
What we talk about today is something that I actually personally see over and over again. Startups rushing to hire a full-time executive, thinking, oh, let me just raise another 200K, 300K. That's a shortcut to traction. But there's the truth. A title doesn't fix a broken foundation. Even though someone might have the experience that you are looking for, even in the industry that you have created, but time changes. How quickly can that person adapt into your organization? And typically, whenever there is a hiccup in growth, it's never just that one issue. It's a multitude of things. Kelly talked about how fractional executives grow with you. Set up the structure so your future hire can plug in and perform without spending 6 months cleaning up misaligned systems. We also explore why sequences matter. You don't always need a CFO first. You need to know what puzzle you are solving, not just throw people at a problem. And that's why when you just hire one person instead of an integrated advisory board as a fractional level, you're actually creating more issue, because we all know the first 30 days, most people are still just learning your system. If they get more confused, they're not going to be able to add value. And if you're hiring someone who only knows how to pitch themselves as a fractional executive, but has never actually built inside your industry, that's also a cash leak waiting to happen. In the next part, we'll get into how to vet these leaders, what red flags to avoid, and how to know if your team's current structure is silently stalling your growth. Now, I want to hear from you before we go to the rest of the episode. Tell us in the comment below wherever you're hearing it, or post it on LinkedIn and tag me, Sabrina Runbeck, like running backwards with an E. Have you ever hired a fractional executive or considered building a fractional board? What worked? What didn't?
Even today, I talked to 3 people that's exactly that. One is a nonprofit tech organization that actually help students to discover their next best job, right? Whether they wanted to be an innovator, or they actually, what if we have futuristic cars that needed to actually remote control, right? These people who be able to showcase that what career really looked like. Another one was that new movement was healthcare, was nutrition, the new medicine, and who came from a nursing background and gone to the old way, like you're saying, be careful, all the coaching way of training. And they're actually getting her so confused. She's like, oh, they're telling me to do a book. They made me to redo my website. And now I don't even know how to launch this. I really wanted to do a group model, like all over the place. I'm like, if you cannot even fill your program yet, why spend the money and time trying to write a book? And how is that book going to bring you the right people, right? You're just trying to throw things on the wall to see what fits. I think that's the challenge, is a lot of people have no strategy, right? As you're saying, there's nothing that's step-by-step framework. So what I was asking her was, well, you're with this large coaching foundation supposed to help you to become a better healthcare nutritionist, right? With all your certifications. So what's the client acquisition roadmap looks like? She's like, what does that mean? Right? Like no one really even think about like what lead generation looks like. How do you create right awareness? How do you create conversion events? What does the nurture even look like? Right? People just doing so much out there without a system. So that's why when we say bottom up, right, instead of top down approach, where there has to be an overhaul of structure of step by step, and then you detail out with your own resources and people and financial to actually be able to execute. And then that can be repeatable and measurable. Otherwise, we're always feel like there are movements, but we're actually not converting anything at all.
One of the things that you've heard me say all this stuff, right? Since we've worked together for so long, you've heard me say all of this. One of my favorite quotes is by Lao Tzu, and he says that strategy without tactics is a long haul to victory, but tactics without strategy is the noise before the defeat. And what typically happens is people get in and they don't even actually understand what strategy is a lot of times. Now, it depends. It depends on the organization. Like if they came out of corporate and, they've had that sort of training, like they're really going to understand it. But a lot of these organizations, you've got people that have really brilliant ideas and these innovators, which we need to bring these innovations to marketplace. But that creativity and that innovation actually is not the same type of brain that works with the strategy component and the thinking things through and the organization of the flow and how we're going to do this and at what timing. And they don't know how to map it out. In fact, I would actually say, just based on, again, I've been in a lot of different industries for a very, very long time. I would say a majority of people don't actually understand what strategy even is. even when people are saying strategy, that's not what it is. Which is the same thing that happens with branding. And then the rest of the time, even if they do understand what it is, they don't have one. I mean, I just consulted a couple weeks ago for a cardiovascular surgeon. And when I went into their organization and they told me what their goals were, very well established. They were already, a multi 7-figure organization. But when I went to go in and ask them what they wanted to do, and then I started asking all the questions, zero strategy, zero foundation, didn't even know their numbers, didn't know any of their patient acquisition costs, didn't have a cohesive plan whatsoever. And they said, do you think you're going to be able to get us to the next level? I'm like, yeah, this is easy because you have nothing in place. They're like, well, what do you mean we have nothing in place? We've been running for blah, 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 blah. And we have this many. And I said, yeah, that's luck. Like you got lucky, right? Because you don't even know, you might not even be charging appropriately. So, you guys have you've got like an EHR system, but you're not even using it. You're not even checking up with these patients for follow-ups to make sure that a year after you work with them, that you're getting them in for a checkup to make sure everything's still good. Like there's no strategy whatsoever. So it's going to be really easy to triple your revenue with a few minor tweaks and have you help more of the people that need your services.
Yeah, I think people get stuck, right? Like, oh, we've been growing, have all these tractions and letter intent. So we should be set. Oh, I just need more people who are in my industry, just open doors. I'm fine. I can close anyone if I get to the right people. So how come you couldn't get to the right people, right? And to your point is people have all these tools, but sometimes the tools they're using are not for the right purpose. And they're mistaking in what they have instead of letting someone like yourself to identify the blind spots and fix them. And then they can easily double, triple what they can create.
Right.
They just needed to come in with the growth mindset.
It does. It really becomes a case of they don't know what they don't know. And what they don't know is costing them time, money, and energy and impact. That's kind of the thing. And that's why you want to bring in, I mean, even myself as someone who does this for a living, when I've got big strategic initiatives within my own organizations, I'm always having people look at them. Because even me, when I'm too close to it, they're like, have you ever thought of? And I was like, no, I did not actually think of that. So even someone who does this for a living, I will miss things, that I didn't think. It happened again today. I was talking to another partner today, and she was going to go do something with in terms of marketing. And I said, yeah, make sure that you film all of that, because then you can use it this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way. And she's like, that never even dawned on me. Those are the things that are like, it never even dawns on you because you're just trying to make the next thing happen. And you're missing out opportunities to, create results so much faster than ever before.
Exactly, because someone else always have the other perspective, other things that they done before that we haven't. So we always needed to do that. And same thing with myself. You has been my sounding board for a long time, and my entire board, right? It's all about we're looking at solutions from multidimensional idea. And that's why when we run our own boardroom with startups, it's never what's your problem. It's always how do we see it from different areas so you can actually get past this much faster instead of I just lacking a sales manager. That's why we're not getting there, right? Or my marketing people are taking on too many things. That's why we haven't get to our goals. No, it's an infrastructure thing. It's a blind spot thing. It's that you need someone else to be your sounding board besides who do you have in your bubble. Correct. So as we wrap up, Kelly, what would you say is the number one takeaway from today?
So, I mean, again, when you're inside of it, you can't read the label of a bottle from the inside. So what you don't see and what you don't know is very much costing you time, money, and energy. So you're always going to want to get an outside perspective, even if it's just to have someone come in. I know you and I talked about this, just having me come in and just look at your existing strategy. And even if it's not even a long-term engagement, having someone look at it, I've paid a lot of money before just to have someone look at my existing strategy to poke holes in it, even to tell me like, yep, this is great. But then they put one little thing in, and that was the thing that made me, help me make an additional $200,000. Like this one little thing. When you have a good strategist, it should never cost you money. It should always save you money, help you create your results faster. And I wouldn't personally do it in my business.
Exactly. We all need to be there. Kelly has so many resources, books, podcasts, and her amazing groups. How can people best connect with you? And what would you say would be the first step for them to take?
Sure. So I'm on all social media channels. So that's easy. You can go to my website, kellyoneil.com. And what I would actually do is, if this is something that you're interested in, direct message me and ask for our strategy white paper. That's a great place to start. I wrote an entire, I don't even remember how long it is, 26-page white paper on strategy and how organizations can use strategists and fractional chief members, leadership members of their team in order to accelerate their results.
Perfect. I know. I'm going to go read it and then probably do a short summary of that for my organization as well. We so
Perfect.
Appreciate you, Kelly, and for everything that you have been supporting us, myself personally. Can't wait for all the amazing things that you have coming up.
Thank you so much for having me here.
And for anybody else who's listening, whether you're watching this YouTube podcast, LinkedIn, we would love to hear from you. Have you hired a fractional executive before or an entire fractional advisory board before? How was that experience for you? And who would be the next person that you want to hire as a fractional executive?
When I first started to build Pulse Point Path, Kelly was one of the first mentor who helped me see the difference between hustling and real momentum, especially how to create a collaborative business model with a fusion advisory board on a fractional level. In today's conversation, we pull back the curtain on why hiring fractional executives isn't just a cost saver. It is often the lifeline that turns early traction into sustainable growth. Kelly and I explore the true role of fractional executive, how startups unknowingly sabotaging their own scale by skipping fundamental steps, and what real strategy looks like beyond flashy titles and advice pieces together from coaching circles. This conversation isn't just about hiring. It's about avoiding the busy trap, and instead of surgically moves that compound returns and reduce founder burnout. Here are the 6 learning points from today. Number 1, fractional executives are not freelancers with fancy titles. Founders often confuse marketing savvy advisories with real operators. True fractional executives bring enterprise-level experiences across strategy, operations, financial, or people, not just a few shiny case studies or coaching frameworks. Number 2, bottom-up executives kills strategy. Most early-stage startups operate from the bottom up, doing tasks without that high-level overall strategic direction. As Kelly said, quote, tactics without strategy is the noise before the defeat. Number 3, blind spots kills scale. You cannot read the label from inside the bottle. When founders are too close to their own businesses, they miss the right people with the right message or the right system. often cost themselves months or years of traction, because in business, those are thousands or even millions of dollars. Number 4, misplaced hiring priorities equal burned cash. Bringing in a CFO, CTO, or CMO too early or in the wrong sequence can tank your budget and morale. Strategy must lead hiring decisions, not just what's trending on the founder Twitter. Number 5, coaching is not the same as a C-suite expertise. There's a distributing trend of individuals being caught to pitch as fractional executives without domain expertise. Vetting is critical. Ask for track records and industry-relevant wins. We have a 5-dimensional way to plug in and match these specific people into the right company. Otherwise, they waste a lot of time figuring out how to help you, and you feel like they actually have not made any moves. And at the same time, you might be paying them or already distributed equity from your cap table that your investors won't like. Number 6, structure before scale. Founders often mistake movement for momentum. Without the right system, culture, and team alignment, new hires become expensive seat fillers, not scale driver. Now tell us, what functions do you think your company need fractional support in first? Is that strategy, business development, operation, financial, or people? And why?
Thank you for tuning in to Provider's Edge podcast. We hope you enjoy our latest episode and found the insights and tips helpful. We'd love to hear your feedback on the show and learn what topics you'd like us to cover in the future. So please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform and let us know what you think. Your feedback is essential to help us improve the show and provide you with the content you need to take your healthcare business to the next level. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.